Definitely see that they're moving away from like all that. Bigger one's gonna be coming east, northeast. If we go southwest, we'll be alright. So we go down maybe 56 Highway, and then go down through Valley Forge and Oskaloosa or something like that. We'd be by Lawrence, you know. But we'd literally just like be able to watch the entire. We'd like glide right by it. We'd be able to watch it like on one side.
This is literally pulling all of them in.
The next 5 hours, dude. Look at this. We just did next 5 hours, and like, hold on, look at this. Bam! It's gonna be like every fucking where, so we can even watch it in our damn backyard. It's gonna rain like a motherfucker tonight, dude. The next hour is not gonna get back. It's floating over. And to be honest with you, I'd like to get back beef. I mean, I'm not like that. Some of the shit's from let's roll, man. Let's roll to a different spot at least. Which way are we facing?
We're facing that street we came in off of.
Are we facing northeast, south, or west? North? This is north,
North,
right?
I believe, yeah.
That's what I was thinking. No, actually, because the sun's setting somewhere on that end over there, so sets in the west, right? So north, south, east, west. So it's kind of like ish, northish is kind of north. We've been listening off podcast.
Did you see how they all melded together?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it just got all big fat and
Terrifying.
terrifying.
Well, it's not the line of storms I was after.
Well, it's gonna. Well, I mean, I just showed you that it's gonna collect into a big, giant shitstorm.
Means it shares energy. Means it doesn't get as big.
I don't know, man. I mean, when I'm looking at the 5, there's like 3 of them that are going to combine. Like 2 hours from now, basically. 9:30, basically, every place is going to be under hell. Dude, look at this. Kansas City, Kansas, dude. We're going to have one big giant one. Red, from what they're saying. So this is like 3 different ones. Look. Like green, like all sorts of different systems coming. And that's at 8:30 predicted. Or 9:30. I mean, there's a couple of them. Smell the humidity. And a little bit of shit.
Human shit. Not human shit, human shit.
Yeah. I was like, oh, there's a lot of human shit. I gotta live out here for a week. I think we're crazy. Good. You want to hear nothing else?
Hello and welcome to the Slate Political Gabfest for April 21st, 2016, streaming of 1237 edition of the Gabfest. I'm David Plotz. John Dickerson of Face the Nation is across from me. He has lost his glasses, so if you sense a certain
What if
myopia,
John Cusack became the Republican frontrunner?
then in New Haven is Emily Bazelon of the New York Times Magazine. Hello, John, Emily. Hi.
He balked. And then we got past the first ballot, and like Ted Cruz, like some people go over from like, because some people are still given to Marco Rubio because they're only released once the first ballot's gone. There's certain states that you are tied to. They brought that rule up for Ron Paul because he came in second, but he came in first in delegates. So because a lot of people that were delegated to somebody else voted Ron Paul, so like it was basically the Ron Paul rule because he won Iowa by delegates, not by popular vote. So by the more politically active people. I said, fine, the insiders have been doing it for years. Fuck you guys, the outsiders, we're gonna do it once. And then they changed their rules. So can't do that shit again. So after the first ballot, those people that are tied to Marco Rubio, and there's gonna be like, I don't know, there might be, if like John Cusack, if he dropped out, they would be like 300, something like that. It'd be a big number. But right now, I think Rand Paul has like 2. There's a few of them that have like 1, 2, 3, you know what I mean? But Marco Rubio has, I believe, 126, which could be, like, if you get on the second ballot, those people can vote for it. Oh, shit.
Executive authority. Is this important? Is it significant? Sure it is to Emily Bazelon, so we'll hear why. Plus,
only me.
Only to you, not to the nation. Or 4 million people.
Right, be granted deportation relief. No, only me.
Plus Good Luck Cocktail Chatter, and then Slate Plus, Harriet Tubman boots Andrew Jackson off the front of the $20 bill, which is great news. We will talk about that. If you're not yet a Slate Plus member, you can get it by going to slate.com/GabFest+.
I agree.
Two
Andrew Jackson
announcements.
was not really known.
We have our Atlanta live show next week, next Wednesday night, April 27th, 7:30 at the First Center. Go to slate.com/live to get tickets. There's still some tickets available. It's going to be a great show. Everything I planned for it. It's going to be fun in the room. John, is
Expectation raiser.
you say it as an expectation raiser. I say it as I'm trying to get people to buy the tickets, John.
They will buy the tickets.
Well, the Republicans, so that's not
Show
easy.
you for experience and make sure it's all of those things true, all true. Also, another live show coming up in Washington, D.C., July 13th, right before the convention. Finally, we are still, for on Tuesday night, suggested that Hillary vanishingly difficult for Sanders to defeat her for the nomination, or for Sanders at least to get enough delegates to outpoll her going to the convention. So, John, why did she do so well in New York? Did she do well in New York, or did she just do okay?
No, she did well. She did well. That was, I mean, she beat the average of the polls going
This
into
is
the
April
election.
21st.
You know, when election day for Bernie Sanders is better than the average of the polls going into it, it seems a big shock, and Clinton showed up about 4 or so points higher than the average of the polls. She did well because she's been a representative of that state. She lives in that state. Her daughter lives in the state. Her husband lives in the state. It was a closed primary, which meant the registered Democrats could participate, and it was a diverse electorate, which is the kind of electorate which she's done well in before. And Bernie Sanders said she was unqualified and did other things that both created, I think, some greater sense of rallying.
Who ran that pony?
They did.
Group.
What do you think you guys got shot?
And pinned him down so that he couldn't make inroads with the electorates he needed to make inroads with. So without having made the inroads, voters didn't show up for him.
Right after she was like done
She
screaming.
performed strongly in the Senate primary this week.
Those fuckers are heavy though, so like.
And Rhode Island. And wait, what was the other one? I can't remember. Assuming she performed strongly, does that essentially finish it?
I mean, doesn't Sanders have to get something like 70% of the vote in the remaining
turned on
contest
that
to
one.
catch up with her?
Bring her back around and go back down that road we came in on.
Thank you. I feel like
We should be able to get a good
mathematically
shot behind it.
possible for Bernie Sanders to win the number of delegates, but it is barely mathematically possible. It requires almost magical thinking. So that's the way it is now. It's likely to be even more so the case after those primaries. So, you know, crazy things could happen. She could drop out of the race. She could, you know, I mean, if you get
indicted.
if you go to the full breadth of human possibility, yes. But
Yep,
based
stay
on
until the
what
end. You're like,
we've
fuck it,
found so
until
far,
she's got it.
You don't expect it to go
You never know, she gets sick.
some other direction. You know, and also I think the sense of movement that Bernie Sanders had gets a little bit sapped.
Make like a nigger joke at the wrong time.
Right.
He swoops in and wins it. He said she makes a black joke right before California, and he wins it. He wins it all. He pulls 90%. He's like, I pulled it out of my ass.
If I were him, I would just figure out how to declare victory. In so many ways, he won. No one expected him to make it this far. His message has had a great deal of influence on positions Clinton has taken. I mean, she came out for eventually a $15. Well, she didn't totally say this. She came close to endorsing a $15 minimum wage for the whole country, which is almost double what we have. I mean, I was like, I couldn't believe it when that happened. Did you guys think that was crazy?
You know,
You think she backed away from it as she
no,
endorsed
well, so her
Almost
position
double. You
has
know
been
what? That girl does not know what the minimum wage is.
national wage of 12, and then you allow states flexibility
$7.25.
because there's some
Thought it was like
emergency
$5.50 federal.
states where $15 would be too much and it would have.
It was $5.15 for years and
So
years.
that's a
It changed when I
perfectly
worked.
defensible policy position. And in the debate, it was unclear whether
City when I was like 18, 19, they changed
she
it
was
to
just mangling her
$6.75, and then
position
they changed it
because
to
she was
$7.25.
just being clumsy and churlish, or B, she was fuzzing it up for the purposes of fuzzing it up and
Yes.
making everybody think everywhere what she wanted them to think. In other words,
Yeah.
the number of policy experts who were going to not vote for her because she supported a $15 national minimum wage was going to be a hell of a lot smaller than those who might vote for her if she's on for 50 So, and her position always had a weird wiggle, which was she's for the fight for 15 in the places in the states where they're fighting for 15 where it matters in the labor market there. She just didn't support it at the national level. I found that just a big either muddle or just what irritates people about Hillary Clinton, which is basically she was trying to have it both ways, and trying to have it both ways, not on a stupid issue about emails, but on an important policy issue that really matters to what a lot of people think is the central question of the campaign, which is how do you
I
help
would
people
love
with
minimum
wages,
wage to be a
bread
statement
and butter
issue,
stuff
but
that she's potentially being
problem with Kansas?
sneaky on.
My main point
There
was just
is a
that
minimum
Bernie
wage
Sanders
bill
has done
in the
enormously
House,
well
and it's been sitting there
so
forever.
If he does this right, he's
And it
going
doesn't
to
increase it a lot, to be honest. It goes from
defeat this race
$7.25 to
with,
like
his
8
dignity utterly
to $8.25
intact, star appeal
to
completely
it literally just goes up to
amplified,
9
people
in like 10
continuing to
years or
feel
some shit
really,
like that.
really good about
You know what I
him.
mean?
So
Yeah.
he just
I'm
has
like,
to play it out in
that's
whatever
not
way
really
he's
that
got.
quick,
I
like,
wonder
and
what
it's
doing
just
it
sitting
right
there. I'm like, that's
means.
pretty
In
damn
1980, when
slow.
Kennedy went all the way to the convention, he definitely bruised a lot of feelings, and some people say weakened Carter so much that Reagan was able to beat Carter. As a result, I think Hillary Clinton has weakened herself a lot of times. I don't think there's really anything, even when Sanders said Hillary Clinton was unqualified, I'm sure that will come back from the Republicans, but I think there's so much more ammunition that Democrats can use than Republicans can use about Hillary Clinton.
Has this campaign made Hillary Clinton a stronger candidate or a weaker one? There was a lot of talk by many people, including me, actually, before this campaign started, before it was clear all in all bad for her.
Well, I don't plan to vote for her.
Basically think it's still been good
I'm
for
not
her
voting for
because
Donald Trump.
all of these weaknesses were going to come out anyway, and so now we've had like a very long dress rehearsal of them. What I can't tell is whether she and her people have gotten better at responding to all of them. I mean, my fears about her and her campaign remain as kind of brittle, slightly paranoid. On the other hand, it does feel like all the things we knew and many of us don't like about the Clintons have gotten an airing. So then, I mean, they're going to come back. Obviously, they're going to come back, but they won't be news to us. And I was also thinking about the whole problem of how a lot of voters, there's some research showing that voters don't like women when they're campaigning because they have to promote and sell themselves in this way that is just seen as like unfeminine or unappealing in women. And I mean, you can see that with Hillary Clinton, that we all, her prisoners are so much the fact that people might like her when she is in office is going to help her with that. But I do wonder if, since we've already had her campaigning, we can sort of there'll be some push to have
And a workout on some issues. The email scandal, for one. I think her answers are still deeply unsatisfying. When she says things like, I've been transparent. I mean, she just hasn't been, you know, and so she mints new problems with each answer. So none of that was improved in the primaries. It was probably made worse. However, they just went through a lot of batting practice. I mean, what Bernie Sanders did was capture a lot of names. People who are drawn into the process, whose names are now in email addresses or on contact lists, and to whom she could make an appeal about the tilted playing field, about how she is going to carry forward those messages. And the comparison won't be perfection versus Hillary Clinton or Bernie Sanders versus Hillary Clinton. It'll be Hillary Clinton versus Ted Cruz or Donald Trump, probably. And she at least has an argument and a whole new set of people to whom she can make that argument, who Bernie Sanders pulled out, and who Bernie Sanders might help be the shoehorn to help make that fit. And now she just doesn't want to exploit it.
Okay, we will talk more, of course, about the...
She really wants to shut him up. She should make him vice president.
We don't really talk about that. I keep saying that.
No, I don't think they do. And if they do, they should.
It's like it's a real douchey kind of coinage.
Coinage.
Make him
in
Secretary of
general
State.
is really-
Like, just like Obama did. It was like, I want to give you a position, but he wasn't a lawyer.
The Amtrak.
Expensive Acela.
Well, but you can't call it Amtrak because then you shouldn't define Amtrak, which is there's something about a train and its magic that goes all across the country, as opposed to just the Northeast.
But the Amtrak, the Northeast part of Amtrak, is the only part of Amtrak that works.
Agree.
If by that you mean the train and not the Wi-Fi on the train.
See, now that's like, now you're in the douchey phase here.
No, I think free Wi-Fi. If there's free Wi-Fi at McDonald's, then free Wi-Fi on a train is not a sign of status.
Can I make a different observation about the regular train versus Acela? They smell.
You know who could actually? I bet you know who could win? All the delegates. Just imagine this. They get past the first. Nobody has enough delegates. Not Trump, not Cruz, and not Crusade. Whatever, for sure. What if Paul Ryan says, I will take all of Marco Rubio's delegates, Ted Cruz's delegates, and John Cusack's, and I will become president? They wanted him as a vice president. He's the only reason people voted for Mitt Romney, dude. Only reason, because he was young, dude. People wanted him to run. And he's the leader of the House, right? He's the Speaker of the House? Just imagine how crazy that would be. Paul Ryan swoops in and becomes the nominee under Donald Trump. Dude, I would be, if I was the head leadership, I'd be calling Paul Ryan, like, do you want to be president? Be like, what? Be like, do you want to be president? I got you on this. That's when you're like the Koch brothers or whatever it is. What are those? KO? Yeah, the dudes have bazillions of dollars. They're just like, we got you.
To essentially a mutual non-aggression pact in some states to be able to do better against Donald Trump and deny him the 1,237 delegates he needs to win the nomination at the Republican convention. And the early, so the background is Ted Cruz has agreed to lay off Oregon and New Mexico, two states where John Kasich will be the main competitor, presumably, for Donald Trump. Meanwhile, John Kasich, at least at first, said, I'm going to stay out. His campaign's going to not spend resources on Indiana. Now, that was the day before. Kasich himself said, well, my supporters can still vote for me in Indiana. It's just that we're not going to spend resources there. So the extent to which this is really a condominium is that's firm is a little dicey.
I mean, he's like, well, I'm not going to win this one, so why spend money there? I'm not going to spend any more ads or anything.
Is a way of combating Donald Trump.
Win the states you can.
I thought it was a fairly elegant solution. John Kasich has been under a lot of pressure to simply get out. And the argument was that he might be serving as a spoiler, and that this would in fact hurt his chances if he went to the convention of maybe appearing as a candidate on a second or third ballot. But the reality is that John Kasich still has a better opportunity in some states than does Ted Cruz. Ted Cruz has a better opportunity in others. So this is a way to try to split, and also just to get out there in the open that one of the goals here is indeed to simply stop Donald Trump from their perspective.
One thing John Kasich has tried to do for perhaps the last 6 weeks is orchestrate
if
this
you just literally wanted to vote against Donald Trump, you'd
want
to know who is leading in that state. You're like, fuck it, you know what I mean?
Where he and Cruz are relatively stronger.
I forgot it was in there. You put it in there.
Work together. The Cruz campaign has rebuffed those overtures. And so we're sort of starting to see it, but it's probably too late, I think, mind you, for this to work. What about? Wait a minute. Now, first of all,
I could have done that a while ago, probably.
The first test would be Indiana,
like 5 states ago. I'm like, hey, dude.
And that's it's the test. So if Kasich's downplaying that and Cruz wins, success, correct?
I think it would be a success, but you have Kasich going out and saying, well, I still want people to vote for me. I'm just not gonna campaign there. I think you need to send.
Well, if you don't campaign, you won't.
Signal,
your name will be forgotten.
To work.
You know? Even if it is not.
Much as Marco Rubio did when Florida voted the same day as Ohio, and he said, my supporters go to John Kasich in that state. The other reason Cruz is having a lot of trouble consolidating the anti-Trump vote. And he shouldn't be having a problem against John Kasich, who's won state after all.
So some of those Kasich voters are going to go to Trump.
And I mean, that's the other thing. A lot of Kasich voters defect not to Ted Cruz, but to Trump.
But does that, this may not take as much. I would just push back a little bit. I don't know if it would take as much as Joe might suggest here. And that if you look at one of the latest
This
polls
is the
that
one?
came out from CBS News,
If there's one that can
Trump
drop
is
a
at
tornado,
40
it's
in
this one.
Indiana, Cruz is at 35, and Kasich is at 20. That's a lot of voters that Kasich commands in a state like Indiana. And so what you're looking at here is if only 5% of them field off with him, that's a potential for a Cruz victory.
Right, and I think that's got to be that's the hope of the Cruz campaign, and because without if Cruz can't take those Indiana delegates next week, then Donald Trump really does have a clear path to the nomination, and all the more so given how well he's likely to do here this Tuesday in these 5 eastern states. I mean, we have seen the polling; it's not definitive. It's there's some tentative polls. It's not. We have to wait and see the results. But if the results come in like the polls, Trump is going to win all 5 states. He's going to win the bulk of the delegates. And Ted Cruz is going to finish third in at least 4 of those states, where and in Pennsylvania he'll be close with Kasich for second.
Best case scenario would be that Kasich keeps Trump under 50% in Connecticut and wins a district or 2, the Gold Coast, for example, Chris Shays wins the Washington suburbs in Maryland and runs, 20, 25, 30% in Pennsylvania, but that doesn't get you a lot of delegates.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, don't forget that the Pennsylvania race is a bit different in that there is an award of, I think, 17
17, that's right.
to the statewide winner, but the bulk of the delegates in the state are allowed to make their decision entirely on their own as to who they vote for at the convention.
Well, this is the question that I think tonight's results raise, which is why hasn't John Kasich been able to do better here, particularly a state like Pennsylvania? I mean, I guess he could surprise, but Trump is really accelerating his support since his defeat in Wisconsin. And neither Kasich nor Ted Cruz have been able to capitalize on the doubts that were seeded after the Wisconsin defeat of Trump. And Ted Cruz, we understood, I think, is his appeal in the Northeast just isn't that great.
That was right on the camera, too.
He's a conservative of a certain kind, evangelical, which doesn't always sell in the Northeast. But Kasich, this should have been Kasich territory. If Kasich has a claim on the nomination, he should be scoring in these states. And yet Trump is beating Kasich as the outsider, beating Kasich among many moderates. Trump isn't winning among solely conservatives. He's winning across the ideological spectrum. Why can't Kasich capitalize?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, he grew up in McKees Rocks, which is a town outside of Pittsburgh. He runs the state next door. There should be some kind of demographic and economic profile on which to capitalize. And I guess part of it is that Kasich is running almost purely biographical campaign where he talks about what he did in Ohio, what he did in Congress in the 1990s, and he says, I'll do it again for the country, trust me, vote for me. And I mean, he's not running on much of a platform other than his past and his personality. And he's not really making a case against Trump, other than Donald Trump is not John Kasich. I mean, he's not making a moral case, he's not making an economic case, he's not making much of any kind of case.
Kim?
Nope, that's about what I was going to say.
Yeah, but he's not making a case for him affirmatively for Kasich either, other than that I've seen he's the electable one. I just saw a new 60-second web ad that the
Today's episode is brought to you by Monster. Find employees who work as hard as you at monster.com/hiring. Monster. Find better.
Who is back from her extended surgery. As we all face the prospect of a contested convention, and then also the fear and loathing emerging of somebody who's didn't run for president, who might could win in the convention, be picked by the delegates. Paul Ryan, the House Speaker, seems to have sending certain people off the deep end. That prospect. We'll talk about that. So, Kim, let's start here talking about this delegate. shutout in Colorado saying, crying foul, rigged, crooked, the whole thing. Did anybody do Donald wrong here?
Have you ever noticed that whenever Donald Trump loses, it's always somebody else? This is what we have happening here is, remember, political parties are private entities, both at a national level, a state level.
The super PAC for Kasich has put out, and it is nothing more than an electability. He can beat Hillary, the other two can't. Now, that is not, at this stage, and particularly once you get to the July convention, a bad argument. It's just an insufficient argument for primary voters who want a reason to vote for you because they want to know you're going to change things. And I think the thing is that Trump has dominated the change vote here. He is basically making the case that he is the one, if you hate the way things are going, he is the one to shake things up. Never mind that he's coarse and he's rude and he's crude. He can break things up, and Kasich just hasn't reached that same threshold.
Right. I mean, it's a complete misread of this electorate that are rejecting every time they go out to vote in a primary the candidates of the last two cycles. They didn't like the Ronnies. They didn't like the McCains. And the McCain and the Ronnie arguments were the same. We are the best situated in a general election. We're acceptable to many Americans. They don't want acceptable. They want someone who's got a big vision, who's going to go in and blow up Washington. And so, to the extent that Kasich is
They want
saying,
Ronald Reagan.
look, I'm a better prospect for you, they don't care about that.
And yet it must be said that the fact that Cruz and Kasich are both willing to stay in the race and divide up the states as they have is in part a function of the weakness of Donald Trump, because Donald Trump has still not acquired a majority of the delegates and may not before the convention. And when we're going to take a break now. When we come back, we want to talk about that Trump weakness and the prospect of getting 1237. When we come back.
I'm Veronica Dagger. Do you want to know how the rich invest, spend, and protect their money?
Welcome back. I'm Paul Gigot here with my colleagues Kim Strassel and Joe Reagan. When we're talking about the Republican convention, the Republican nomination fight, and Donald Trump's ability to get 1,237 delegates, which is still in doubt. He's gaining some momentums with his New York win last week and his likely win in the 5 more eastern states on Tuesday night. But yet, there's still significant resistance to his candidacy across the Republican spectrum, not just the dreaded establishment, but among many rank and file Republicans, and that's why Ted Cruz and John Kasich are staying in the race, because they think they can win it in Cleveland. And Trump still hasn't overcome those doubts about whether he's going to Joe. And you can hear Paul Manafort, his new Beltway operative,
the Trump whisperer,
come in and say, look, he said down at the meetings, the Republican National Committee meetings in Florida, look, Trump, the Trump you've been seeing isn't really Trump. It's been an act. And I'm going to make, these aren't my words, these are his. And as he pivots to get the nomination and then to move to the general campaign,
I was hoping Trump would literally like slowly morph into like a calmer
speeches. He'll be more disciplined.
Yeah,
he'll be able to pivot.
I was hoping he'd be able
and
to
look
do
more
that.
presidential, as Trump once put it himself publicly. I'll be so presidential, I'll be boring.
Right, and Paul, we have seen the new Trump for about 3 hours at a time, and then he gives another speech where he explicitly disavows that. This week yesterday Trump gave speeches where he talked about Rafael Cruz coming from the hills of Canada, not an American citizen.
That's Ted Cruz's father.
That's Ted Cruz's given name.
Oh, that's right. That's his given name. It also is his father, but it is his given name.
Going on a sort of insult comic dog riff on John Kasich and his eating habits, and telling people that I'm whatever Paul Manafort is saying, I'm going to continue giving the people what they want.
Bread and in insults, I guess.
Right, and I mean, you are starting to see leaks from the Corey Lewandowski wing of the campaign saying how unhappy Trump is with this new image, and so I don't know. We are not going to see a new Donald Trump, barring medication.
And Lewandowski being the campaign manager.
He literally starts taking like medicine I take, and he's like, I'm all better. Yeah. Wait a minute.
And the Belgian crowd, Kim. It is fascinating. There is this resistance to Trump, and the Republicans are still divided in a way that the Democrats are not. Notwithstanding the Bernie Sanders challenge to Hillary Clinton, she's going to put him away tonight in these 5 eastern states. And while there might be some more pseudo drama before the convention, barring an indictment, she's got the nomination, and there were and the polling suggests in the primaries that the Democrats are more or less going to unite pretty.
There's probably going to be a
comfortably
more
behind
uniting,
Hillary
yeah.
Clinton, whereas the Republicans are still terribly divided.
Yeah, I mean, Bernie is still fighting this, and you've seen him in the last couple of days saying, well, maybe I'd even choose Elizabeth Warren as a running mate. He's pulling out all the stops.
Because people really like Elizabeth Warren as like a vice president.
That core support group of younger people and activists. And that might be the one quarter of the party, one sliver of it, that will have a harder time getting their head around Hillary Clinton, because they haven't wanted her from the start. They've been very eager for an alternative. This was the crew that, remember, did try to gin up a draft Elizabeth Warren movement last year. They had settled for Bernie, in fact, embraced Bernie to some degree. So she's going to have some work to do there. But yes, she's in a far better position in terms of consolidation than the Trump side. On the Trump side, all this talk about him changing his persona, I sort of view as a bit of a sideshow. Everyone knows he's never going to change. The dynamic of this Trump race has never changed from the start. He's got about 35 or 40% of people in every one of these states that are voting in these primaries that are core Trump supporters, that really love him. And I mean, and it varies state to state, and some the high 20s and some the low 40s. They don't care if he is rude or aggressive. Some of them love him more for it. They're not going to peel off from him. And so the only dynamic that matters here is the other 60% of the Republican electorate who despise him, and whether or not they're going to be able to.
A lot of people won't even vote, you know?
Yeah,
that's the issue.
I would just add it's instructive to compare the popular vote totals of the two parties. I mean, Hillary Clinton has a legitimate claim on the nomination. She's got about 65%.
Patrick's on right now. He's watching.
Popular vote. Sanders has been a remarkable phenomenon, but not one that dominates the majority of the Republican Party. Democratic Party, excuse me. The Republican Party, as Kim said, Trump has 37% of the popular vote, large plurality over anybody else. Cruz, Kasich, and even Rubio, who's ahead of Kasich at this point. Sorry, losing my train of thought. And just far less of a legitimate claim on the nomination than the Democratic side.
And so the betting tonight is Hillary Clinton wraps it up, and Trump takes another significant step to the nomination, but it's still not over. But we'll see how many delegates Cruz and Kasich can carve from the Trump performance tonight. So thanks to Kim Strassel and Joe.
Glad they added podcasts. I like to put them in reverse. I think it's funny.